Hello and welcome back to another gouache landscape tutorial. And today we have this autumnal forest, which I thought was quite interesting with this dark background and the light trees in front of it. So I really like the colors in this scene, and this is why I chose to paint it. And yeah, I hope you'll enjoy it. I'm really sorry I don't have the drawing stage and the first few steps on video, so somehow my camera didn't record this, but you can see I have a pencil sketch underneath and I've already dropped in a few basic colors. So what I did was I wetted the entire paper surface and then I started to drop in the colors, and I have this dark background band that you can see, this dark green, and then the lighter patches of green and of yellow where you can see the leaves on the trees and in the foreground. And what I'm doing right now is I'm adding a little bit of that muted violet for the tree trunks. So my paper surface is still wet, so I'm not going to get a very crisply defined line, but that's okay. I just want to indicate where these tree trunks will go later on. And now that the first layer has dried, I've switched to my smaller brush. So up until now I've worked with my large flat brush, and now I've switched to my smaller round brush, and I'm adding these sort of leafy, these leaf shapes and these bush shapes in the trees and on the ground. So I'm taking my time with this. I've sped things up here and there so that you can follow along a little bit better. And you can see I'm adding in these areas where the white, where the sky peeks through the leaf canopy. And I also want to make sure that these yellow leaves stand out. So I have a really intense dark yellow mix that I add, and it really pops out against this gray sky there. So I'm sort of dabbing and dotting things in. Also these darker areas where you can see into the background. And from time to time I use my water sprayer to keep things moist. I don't want things to be too defined because this is the background I'm working on. There are a few distant trees in the back that I want to be more defined. And then I'm adding a little bit more water for these tree shapes to dissolve into the back. And if I had planned this out a little bit better, then I probably would have done so this in the first layer, and now I could add more detail on top of it. But sometimes you see things in your painting that need to be fixed at a later stage, and so this is what I'm trying to do now. And you can see I'm adding back in some highlights. So where the light hits these bushes in the front, I'm adding this light yellowish green, and again I'm dabbing it on with my brush so that I have sort of this rendering of leaves without really painting each single leaf, if that makes sense. And I'm doing the same thing for the yellow parts in the crown of the trees. So I'm taking my time with this, adding this yellow everywhere that I can see it in the picture. And now it's time to define the tree trunks a little bit more. So I'm using this very light violet mix, and I'm taking my time making these straight lines for the trees. And I will go back with a slightly darker hue and then add this these darker parts. And what I found interesting about the lighting in this scene is that you have these very light tree trunks in the middle of the picture, and then as you go up into the top of the trees, it gets slightly darker. So you have this sort of this lighting, this lighted stage that's in the center of the image, and this is the effect that I want to show in the image. So these light tree trunks in front of a dark background. Adding a bit of a red or of a muted orange. I'm dabbing it away a little bit with my finger to reduce the intensity. So this is sort of my shadow color for the yellow areas of the trees. And I don't want this to be too prominent. I'm doing the same with these light dapples of light that you can see through the leaves. So I'm jumping around in my painting, adding details here and there. Now I'm working on the darker areas, sort of the shadowy areas of the bushes, because I think up until now the painting lacked a little bit of these very dark values. So I try to push these into my painting. And then adjusting the rest of my painting for these for the contrasts of the dark and light values. Always trying to think about the texture that I want to get and how I want the leaf texture to look like. So I'm sort of scrubbing my brush around on the surface. And in a few areas I'm adding back a few highlights on the tree trunks and sort of this rim light on the bushes, and here on the yellow parts of the tree. These are almost like individual leaves. I mean, at this scale they're not, but I want there to be a feeling of these individual spots that your eye will be drawn to. I'm also adding a little bit of the grass in the foreground with my very small size 1 brush. So I've switched brushes again, and this is my, I believe it's a size 1 rigger brush. So this gives a very fine line, and it can also make for very nice organic details. So this is why I like to use this one. You can see I'm adding more shadows in a few areas. And that's basically the last step that I take before removing the tape. And that's always a nice moment to see these nice crisp edges when you remove the tape. And one thing that I want to do is take a brush with just a little bit of water and remove some of these tightly rendered areas. I want the detail to remain sort of in this focal point in the middle. So this is my finished sketch. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and found it useful. And if you have any questions, then let me know in the comments area below. If you like this, then yeah, give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel if you want to see more gouache painting videos or nature sketching videos. And in any case, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. And until then, happy sketching.